Hi, Jen. Hi. So how many participants or company members do you currently work with, and how long have they been with the company working with yourself?
That's interesting. So we've got 11 trainee actors, and two of them are founder members of the company. So they've been in it as long as I have. And that's so since 2000. They were in the research and development in 2011. Then two more joined in 2015 when we were making Kosoku. And then we recruited um, the, so that's two, four. The rest, seven, six of them came to actor training when that started in 2017. And interestingly, we've had a new recruit during lockdown, but it was a very talented young man who was in our community group, wanted to do more. And his mum said, can he come? He was due to come to actor training. He'd auditioned and he was due to start in September. And in April, his mum said, can he come? Because nothing else is happening. There's nothing else for him to do. We said, yeah, great, come over. So he joined then, but he had been in the community group. So there's another 12, I think, currently. It fluctuates between 10 and 12 in the community group on a Wednesday, the Hub. And again, some people have been with us for years. Some people are little bit newer. So there's always a kind of a core, and then others may start in the community group and then move into the actor training. And the actor training has been quite consistent. That's the third year has been completed online, third year of training. So we're now moving into sort of developing professional practice with the actors that have done that. So we're looking at how we prepare CVs and, how do we present ourselves? How do we audition? And looking for different opportunities. That's something that's coming up potentially with Derby Theatre and also with Vadar, learning different skills as well as acting. Like all of us, we have to multitask. There's few of us that sort of just walk into one job in the arts. So learning different skills such as facilitating and teaching, front of house, stage management, lighting and tech, so that everybody starts to build those different skills to lean on or to use within the ensemble or outside. But yeah, back to the numbers, we also have, we work with schools and organisations. We're part of the Derby Reimagine Send Hub, and we've been doing work online as well with them, with the 5 special needs schools. And I think we've had about a reach of about 200 on some of our online work, the video workshops for the, yeah. So it's gone quite far. The reach has been quite far and wide, which is great. And we still just keep tapping on the doors of those schools and organisations who are struggling and say, oh, it's too difficult, it's too complicated. But we've managed to ease a few schools in and say, no, it is okay. We can set it up digitally. So, yeah.
And how are those two groups structured differently? So obviously you've got the community group and then the main ensemble. What's the difference between those two?
I'd say that the aims of each group are different. So the community group, the Hub, is it's still group work. So anybody that comes has a taster workshop, and the bottom line is people need to be able to work in a group and to respond creatively. And if that works, then that's great, because some people might come and they're not quite ready to work in a group yet. So basically the harmony of the group is the most important thing. So the Hub will work around creative expression. They'll also create performance and learn different drama and movement techniques. Big focus on well-being, and also the social interaction and social skills that happen that are just implicit with going to work in a venue and having lunch with somebody and having a chat and a conversation. And but the difference then would be for the trainee actors is that there's again an audition. We're looking for a certain drive, an ambition. It's like, yes, I really want to do the, yes, I really want to perform. I want to go on tour. And so the commitment is greater. The demands are greater. The rigor is there's more rigor and more discipline as we really work as an ensemble and build those physical skills and devising skills. So some people are very happy just to be in the Hub. That's their right place. They love it, enjoy it, come once a week's perfect. And that might be that's all they want to do. For others, they'll say, oh, I've started here. I've got used to how it is at Hubbub. Actually, I think I'd like to I'd like to really have a go at working at this and making something out of it, and hopefully going on tour again.
And
Yeah.
do the community group work towards a project or an end of something performance? How does that manifest?
Yeah, what we normally do is we have two events called the Hubbub Club, and winter one and a summer one, and so the community group will perform at those clubs, and then we may have other mini projects in between those times. We've worked with Folk 3D and on a mummers play, and that was shown at St George's on St George's Day in Derby. So different opportunities might come in, or we might do a smaller sharing. And again, obviously it's changed this year, so we're figuring out how we share work online with the community group as well. The actors have become quite skilled at that and quite used to it, but we want the community group also to have that experience, because the experience of sharing what you've done and having your work and your successes mirrored back to you is vital and really important for your mirror neurons and your self-esteem and also your learning. So it's I think visibility has always been a big thing for me with Hubbub. Some learning disabled groups, and there are learning disabled drama groups, who do great work, really good work, but sometimes they can just sort of sit in a community centre and it's a bit hidden, and it's something that happens, and it's of value. There's definitely a value, but what I really wanted to do was to be visible and to be integrated. And I think that performance element is part of that. Being at Dada is part of that. Performing on the street is part of that. We are part of community. We're part of society. And I always remember the first time I went into a special needs school, I'd just finished my MA, so drama and movement therapy, and I was trying to set up work. And obviously, like anything, it takes time. You have to build your connections. I was a teacher. I am a teacher. I didn't want to go back into mainstream teaching, even as supply, to earn some money. But I went into supply as a special needs teacher. And this was in London. And the first school I went into, it was hidden away on an estate, as many special needs schools are. You can hardly find them. And I had the most extraordinary day. And I met the most positive, energized, enthusiastic young people and staff. I remember covering a PE lesson, people leaping and bounding everywhere, and it was joyous. And I came out thinking, where are these people? I've just been in this fantastic building, had a life-changing experience, seen a diverse range of people doing wonderful stuff and really engaging emotionally and interacting with me. Yet when I come out and I go home on the bus and I go into the shops, I don't see anybody. And so it stayed with me all the time. Where are learning disabled people being reflected? Where's their place in society? We work with St Martin's School a lot in Derby, and the wonderful woman on there, she's on the governors now. I think she was the PTA, or the other way around. I can't remember. She did a piece of research, and over 50% of their young people don't engage in anything outside of school. Anything. And I know this isn't just about learning disability. This can go across many sectors, and about the social background, and lots of different issues can prevent people from engaging. But that was a big, high number. And so for us, we want to say, yes, you're welcome. Yes, you are an important part of life. And I remember also this word inclusion, very interesting word, because I was hearing, I can't remember who was speaking, but the word inclusion came up. It was Rachel Lyons from Frontline Dance in Stoke-on-Trent. And she said, who included in what? Who's including who? It's a really interesting thing. And like, we're here, so we'll include you. But that's already setting a status that we have something, and then we will include you. So integrating, I mean, inclusion is still a useful word in many contexts, but we live in a society full of different people. No two people are the same. But yet we all share feelings, emotions, a need for connection, a need for meaning and purpose, a need for safety, a need for love, a need for security. We all share that, no matter who we are. And that really has become the heart of Hubbub, is the humanness. Yes, we advocate for learning disabled people, but really we advocate for humanness. And how can we all recognize that we are all different and diverse, yet we all share these fundamental struggles and joys of life? And in that, the choice has always been with Hubbub not to make work about being learning disabled, but to make work about being human, in which learning disabled people are integrated into that process and that performance equally. And people see that we're all living similar experiences, no matter who we are. And we just all need slightly different bits and bobs to help us along. We all do. You might need a bit more space and time. You might need a visual document. I need a bit of quiet every now and again. All of those things. We all need different things. We all have innate human needs, but we're all living on the same planet, in the same community, and we're the same species.
What's the age range, firstly, of the company members? And when you mentioned welcoming new members into either group, the company or the community cast or the family, how do you make sure everybody's needs and requirements are supported before you start working with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we meet somebody new, we meet them in a variety of ways. Generally word of mouth. Somebody phones up and says, so and so's told me about Hubbub, and my son, daughter, or the person I work with would like to join. So we send a little form to find out a little bit about them, and then we arrange a meeting. And so we'll have a cuppa with that person and a carer, and we'll chat through the form and find out about them, and ask a few questions around, what access needs there are. And we tend to find out in that meeting if that person is going to be okay, at least for a trial workshop. We get a good sense of them. And that also comes from our observations of somebody, that we're very intuitive as well. We get a feel for somebody, we get a sense of them. And I think that's a big part of our work, which is also incredibly hard online, but we are intuitive and responsive in that way. So we'll have a chat, and at that same time we're getting all the details we need, all the important stuff, the people that we need to contact, any medication they're on. We're kind of having a nice chat, but we're also filling in all the stuff we need to do, all the gaps, that's it. And then we invite that person in for a workshop, and then we have a chat afterwards about how was that, and would you like to do it? Would you like to carry on? And we keep it there, really, and keep an eye on how that person's developing over the first few weeks. And if there's any issues, we'll contact, a carer and have a chat. So usually, if somebody is right for the group, they just kind of slot in. But obviously, we've got all of the safeguarding policies and the health and safety policies, and the team are trained and will be trained more, actually. And this way of working that we've developed over this time, we've called it now the Hubbub Way, and we've realized that there really is a strong practice there about how we make theatre, how we facilitate theatre workshops and creative practice. But even this year, even further, we've been looking at the Hubbub Way is about everything we do. It's about how we communicate. It's about how we run meetings. It's about how the company is structured. It's about how we market, all of our marketing. And so that's become almost a language and a philosophy for the company, which I find really exciting, because when people come in, we can share our values. We can share the way that we're doing things. this has all got to be, it's all still very much in process because I haven't written it down or said it. It's just working on it. It's just this, I've got such an accumulation of ideas. Actually, January and February, I will be writing it down and making sure that we've got it, captured it, as well as a documentary that we've made with Adam Robertson from the beginning of the development process of the drum, which we'll probably talk about in a minute, and the Hubbub Way. So that was looking at when we were working with Helen Baggett from Gecko and devising the piece, what was happening in the room? How do we make this room, this rehearsal room, a safe and creative space to be for everybody, and particularly for our learning disabled actors who would not normally have access to a rehearsal room. And, you know, the same practice will then filter down into the community groups, into the schools groups, and that's the method we run. You know, that's our methodology. And the safety comes through the ritual, a lot of it. The safety and the ease, the people, so that people feel at ease to create. And we realized that also the ritual that we've created was the reason why we could transfer to online work so easily, because we had a structure, we knew what we did. When we meet, this is what we do, this music plays, we greet each other in a certain way, we follow a certain warm-up, we lead into practice in a certain way, we lead out in a certain way, and there's just structure and routine, and in the safety of that structure and routine, there's then space in between, which is one of our favourite phrases, the space in between to create. But the ritual is the holding space, it's the container for that creative process to happen. And we were amazed to see that transferred onto Zoom, because we kept the ritual and the routine the same. And so everybody knew what they were doing, even though they were looking at a screen and looking at little boxes. And yeah, that was quite mind-blowing, actually. Just go, there it is. It's so anchored in. It's in our bodies. We know what to do. When that music plays, we know what to do, whether you're in your living room or you're in Dada. That's what happens. Yeah.
And you were talking about that you've been making a documentary following the creation of what is, I guess, your methodology, the Hubbub Way. How's that all going?
Yeah. Well, that was when we started working on developing a new show at the end of, I'm going to get on my years model, at the end of 2019. And we had 2 intensive rehearsal periods with Helen Baggett from Gecko, who was movement collaborator, and our physical theatre performers that were coming in to work in the integrated ensemble. So Chris Yarnell and Laura Ryder, and then Ines Sampaio Figueiredo coming in as a musician, composer and performer, because in all of our pieces we have live music, and the music is created in the process. So the music is our language in a way, the music is our script. And there's a very finely tuned relationship between the musicians and the actors. And it's, as the work is created, the sounds are created with it. We do use some words, but mainly not, you know, it's visual and physical. So that was all happening in the room, and Helen was there, and we started, and the idea was to document the process all the way through. And Helen had said that the reflection on working with us, which she had worked with us briefly once before, was that the work was very similar to Gecko. And I thought, whoa, flipping heck, crikey, that's a lovely thing to say, thank you very much. But in the way that we embodied, in the way that we held space, in the way that we allowed the creative process to happen, with people making, as they call it, offerings and versions of things and saying yes to things. So that's where we really started to chat together and think, we need to document this. So the first documentary is focused on the theatre making Hubbub Way. And I think there's a whole series of things we want to do now, as well as I've got a training that I'm going to pilot with our facilitators. So it will be a 5 stage training on how the Hubbub Way works in terms of the environment and the non-verbal approach and the response and the communication. So that's going to roll out next year as well. So it's a really exciting time because we've gathered all this experience. We've been working with so many different people and all pulling it together and saying, right, okay, let's formulate this. Not that it will be fixed, but it will create a framework in which artists and facilitators can find their way. So, but as I said, the first documentary is focused on this process that happened with the drum and what was happening actually in the devising rehearsal room space, and how we also used, how when our actors feed back into a process, it's not always done through words. It will be done through movement or drawing, or literally sometimes just a flicker of something. When we're facilitating, our observation skills and our senses are on high level. So the space is created, and so there's never one facilitator. We always work with two co-facilitators and then creative enablers who are in the room, and we're all observing from different angles, and we're all feeling as well what's going on. We're all sensing what's going on. And so as something happens, we might pull out, oh, well, I just saw Amy over there. You had a really lovely movement when I said that. What was that movement? And then we might go over and explore that movement. So it's come straight from Amy, but Amy may not have been able to formulate what she was trying to offer in words. So we're just talking another language. We're talking on, visual movement, kinesthetic, embodied language. And that, sorry. No, I was just saying, it takes a certain kind of person as well to want to work in that field, and that's no criticism of people who are not, but it's it's being able to move down below from the cognitive, but holding one foot out with that cognitive brain working. You're also really dropping in to a place where we trust that we can go with the flow, really.
Jen, I just wanted to ask, before we talk about the drum and the show and its processes a little bit more, I just wanted to ask you, what is the range of your company's disabilities?
Yeah. So we are, what I can say is we don't work with people with profound and multiple learning disabilities. So I think that's a whole other skill set. There are companies who are brilliant at that, and Bamboozle and Oily Cart. There's a whole host of really good practitioners and companies, and that work tends to be very sensory and immersive, and made for their PMLD audience. Where our focus is with neurodiverse actors and participants, those on the autistic spectrum. We have people with Down syndrome, people with moderate learning disabilities, moderate to mild. The classifications have changed more recently, and it's quite hard. It's quite hard to pin people into those categories. But essentially, people who are able to join the group independently. And we do have a young woman who is a wheelchair user, and she is more cognitively able than many of our actors and sort of accesses the work slightly differently. But again, we adapt the work to her. And so we are a physical theatre company, but that doesn't mean that you have to be on your 2 feet to be physical. There's many ways of being physical, but that's where we focus the work. So people who can come in and be in the group independently and work as an ensemble. So we don't have support workers in the room. We have our creative enablers. Sometimes a support worker or a family member might be in the cafe for a little while, for a few weeks, just in case. But that usually disappears. The just in case disappears, often within about 2 weeks. And so that's the tone, if you like. The tone of the company is of independence, and other groups do other things and meet the needs of other people, and that's brilliant. But that's where we've chosen to focus.
Right. So once somebody transitions into the company, ensemble. How is that actor training then formulated, and what process or journey of development do they then move on to?
That's a great question. That again I worked a lot with Vanessa Brooks from Dark Horse Theatre, she was artistic director at Dark Horse Theatre up in Huddersfield, and they do an amazing actor training program. And she formulated an approach called the silent approach. And she's no longer that artistic director there, but she became a mentor for me, and we worked together quite a lot in the early days of Hubbub developing the actor training. And she's now gone on to start Separate Doors, which is a fantastic initiative about access to training and access to professional opportunity for learning disabled actors. And there's 4 companies who are part of that. So it's us, Access All Areas, Hijinks, and Dark Horse. And she also works with RADA and the National Theatre and all the big names. She's got all the big names engaged in trying to get this work out there and tell people about, amazing learning disabled actors, and it is possible. So I worked a lot with her, and we looked at what was needed and the structure. And she also, within her silent approach, there were a lot of parallels with the way that I'd developed the Hubbub Way, and that had stemmed from my drama and movement therapy training as well. I come from the Sesame approach around ritual and embodying and being really present and opening up an empty space, if you like, for the creative process. And she had a very similar thing and about authenticity. So the actor training from the community group, some of that will happen. But if somebody then comes into actor training, we begin to look more with more focus on presence and being able to hold yourself as an actor, your body. We use Laban movement to develop a movement vocabulary. We really do spend quite a lot of time on neutral, finding neutral, which Vanessa once said to me, if your actors find neutral, then you're winning, because that's one of the hardest things to do. So a lot of time in neutral, some work on the voice. We haven't done an awful lot on the voice, but we're bringing that in some more, which is great. And then there'll be exploration, devising, ensemble work. We sometimes have different artists or different companies come in to do a skills base, but also creative process. And then if we're entering into a phase where we're making work, then the rehearsal process becomes part of the training. So it's very active, it's very vocational. So elements of core skills, ensemble work, and then what is it like to be part of a theatre ensemble? How do we work together? What are the challenges? So that also involves learning how to reflect back, learning how to give and receive feedback, positive and negative, learning what else is needed in the rehearsal process in order to make a piece go from an idea onto the stage. So it's hands-on, get involved kind of training. And as I said, we've just come through the first cohort, and it's a question now. I've got questions about how we develop and what, that I don't have any answers right now, but we're constantly reflecting on what's the most meaningful way forward. I never want anything to become tokenistic or just have cohorts of people coming through the door and then going out the other side and then just leaving people with nowhere to go. I have to just realize it probably comes back to when I first went to university and did drama at Central. I did that, and then I came out the other side and had no idea what I was supposed to do. So I don't ever want to do that to anybody, to say, well, you've done a training, there you go, have a certificate, off you go. So we're looking now at the Hubbub Theatre company itself. So those actors who are ready and who have really worked at their stamina and their skills, they're ready for the next step. And so now we're looking at professional opportunity with us and outside with other companies. And thankfully, slowly, the world is opening up a little bit. Despite COVID, I've had more phone calls from casting agents looking for a learning disabled actor than I ever have. Slowly the profile is raising. I'm hopeful, because of the Arts Council agenda and the lots of the spotlights on diversity and access, and the, we shall not be removed movement, and many good things that have happened this year, we can start to put more of our actors in a more visible place.
Yeah, so is there a moment where you're then encouraging members to journey onward away from Hubbub? And where does that moment happen?
Yeah, that's all. We haven't had that yet. And it's an interesting one. So if I look at a model, if I look at Dark Horse, for example, so the actors will actually remain company members, and they will continue to go to Dark Horse and to continue their practice. And that's a really important part of it, because, again, just to say, well, you've done your training with us now, bye-bye. Just to go to a CPD workshop wouldn't be accessible for a learning disabled actor. So our role continues beyond the training. It continues. We become almost that the work. We are the workplace for those actors. So as well as offering CPD and ongoing training and meaningful creative activity, which works on many levels, as professionals and as being well people, I see that our role will continue. So even if there was an opportunity outside of Hubbub, if Derby's Theatre said, hey, Sarah said, I want to learn disabled actor, so we'd do an audition process and somebody was wanted, Hubbub will still support that actor. And the access needs. So if an actor was recruited who needed a BSL interpreter, that would happen. If an actor was recruited who needed a ramp, that would happen. Our actors need a creative enabler. And because it's communication is the barrier. And often rehearsal rooms, audition processes, life in general goes too fast. And there are too many words. And so, it was wonderful to hear Sarah on Departure Lounge on the panel discussion talking about slowing down, and that the pace, and Lynn Gardner saying the pace of this year has suited many disabled artists. And it's true. And it also suits me. I also get overwhelmed and oversensitized by too many words, too much stuff. So I think that I'm quite suited to working in my field, because I do have a sensory sensitivity. And so our role will be, and it'll be interesting as this develops, to take our actors to opportunity. Anna, a couple of years ago, had an audition with Extraordinary Body. She's an amazing physical performer, a circus artist, and she, on our not so quite revolution of kind of, she's the one up in the air doing the straddle splits, and she's wonderful. So she auditioned, and we went, and we did take Mum at one point, and we were the bridge for her. And I also was in the room as this work was happening, if something was being communicated in a way that Anna couldn't understand, then my job, or if it was Emily who was there, sometimes a creative enabler, we would say, Anna, what is asking you is, and then we would just simplify the question, or sometimes just model it. So the role of the creative enabler, and that is the access need, is to be able to understand or have a good relationship with the actor. And it is about relationship. There's no one answer. People say, how do I work with somebody with a learning disability? So we'll get to know them. Yeah, of course, there's a few things that are important. Use less words, slow down, tune in, but get to know them. So I think that's where our aim is, that Hubbub in the next phase of work now we will begin to profile our actors on our website and more publicly. And then if an opportunity comes, we will support that actor out there. And then we'll learn as we go along, which is what we always do. We learn, we'll come up against some challenges, we'll figure them out. But as long as other organizations, mainstream venues, or whoever is programming or looking for artists are willing to slow down and work alongside us, and find out, then we can all sort of really make a big difference.
Yeah. Where did you find, or how did you develop that title or that role of a creative enabler? How did that come around? Is that an idea from other companies that you've worked with, or is that something that's organic to Hubbub?
That's a good question. I didn't come up with the name, and I can't remember which company did. It's a widely used name now. I know Access All Areas use it, and Open Theatre do. There are many, and the Creative Minds is a national network of learning disabled arts organisations of all different art forms. So it's become a known name. I've always known that we needed extra people in the room. And when we had extra people in the room, it because of the working alongside and the modelling and the nature of the integrated work, so not just having learning disabled people in the room all the time, and also on that very practical note of safety and safeguarding, and it just takes more people in the room. So you can have your facilitator, and we tend to have now 2 co-facilitators and a creative enabler. And in terms of managing a room, modelling a room, being alongside, reading the meta communication, so what's happening, what's being communicated, but it's not verbally. That's always happened. And in my drama and movement therapy training as well, we didn't go out alone. We worked in 2s, because you can see something, and when you're working intuitively, you might feel it, but you have to question it, because obviously we've all got our own stuff. So is that me having a reaction to that, or is that something that somebody's communicated to me? So if we work together, we can talk that through and go, did you get that? I felt this. What was happening there? So that the extra people, just fabulous, and they're brilliant at, quickly, we needed this, we needed that. Someone's having an assistant stage manager in the room all the time. And so then I started using that. I heard the phrase creative enabler. I thought, what a brilliant phrase. This is when we're trying to talk about the access requirements and access needs of learning disabled artists as a national movement. If we're all starting to use the same language, that's really helpful.
Yeah. And have you found that through the design of your methodologies and your processes, that you are creatively enabling your company members to voice when they particularly have an idea that needs some support from your enablers in order to bring it into reality, into fruition? Is that a conversation that your members are having with you in the rehearsal room? Because I think that's a universal devising methodology, isn't it, for somebody to say, I have this idea, I don't know how to make it happen, or I may need some support in order to make this idea happen. Who in the room can support me or listen to my idea in order to bring it into creation?
It does take place, but it will take place in many different forms. So, and I've got lots of examples to this question that will run across a whole spectrum. So we have one actor who's got a film he wants to make, and he can articulate that. He knows what he wants to make. He's written a film story. It's not a script, but he has the outline of a story. He has been on a workshop with me, with Told by an Idiot, we went down to London together. His brother supported him. His brother supported him with the comp, but staying with him, I supported him as creative enabler in the room. So there was those. And then, so we worked with Paul Hunter on the Cool Cousin workshop, which is about the relationship between cinema and theatre. So that was great. We made a film with Told by an Idiot as well. And Barrett was the lead in that and led a lot on the role of that film. But he has a film to make. And we will help him make that film. He doesn't want to make it now. He wants to make it after lockdown. And we're just looking for bits of funding. But he is very much the driver of that project. A couple of other actors can also articulate that. I want to do that. I'd like to create this. And so we can follow it. Some of the actors won't and don't do that. However, their offerings are really, then it's almost like we need to generate a space where we trigger the thinking or we ask a certain question. It needs to be elicited. The responses need to be elicited, and then we can follow. Other people are just really, really happy being in an ensemble. So it's many different things. And then Izzy is training as a stage manager, assistant stage manager. She's learned loads. She's really now pretty much, she's a support facilitator and a creative enabler for the school's work.
How much do the aspirations of the company members shape your program or the offer for the company members? Is it an open dialogue between yourselves and those members in relation to, they may voice that these are particular skills that they want to strengthen or develop, and that's how you pram your program of learning? Or is it something that you put together, trial it, and then see whether or not actually the right skills are being developed in order to create a show and develop your participants?
Yeah, it's a hot, what did I say, half? It's definitely a mixture. So when we were beginning to work on the drum, we weren't working on the drum. We just said, what should we make the next piece of theatre about? Threw some ideas around. Love. Everybody wants to talk about love. So that's where we began. So we started from love, and then as an exploration together, we looked at different types of love. And then we came upon agape, the biggest love for humankind, big love. And everybody was quite excited about this, big love. Because romantic love is complicated, isn't it? And there's lots of plays about that, but we all got really excited about big love. And then we came into kindness, and then we started to talk about that. And then we started looking at the random acts of kindness movement. So we were researching together, exploring. There was talking, there was moving, there was watching some different bits of, films, lots of different explorations. And from that came what I call now Hubbub's kindness period, but I don't think our kindness period is actually going to ever end. But we will always have other focuses, but the kindness will run forever. As before, it was about harmony, and that will never end either. But we just start to stack them up. So from there, we go into the not so quiet revolution of kindness. And we just all looked at things together, and things can get rejected, or they can get accepted, or other things can come in. So it's all just a bit, like good devising process. It's a bit messy, a bit fluid. And then I found this story of we had various books and things, and I found the story of the drum, and I just read it and said, what do you think? And then the response was, yes, we like that. But when we started to not use the traditional story, just look at the themes of the human needs, the human givens, the need for shelter, the need for warmth, the need for food, the need for connection. So we pulled away again from anything too set in any cultural or social setting, just to come back to being human. And then we can all relate to that. And then we explored, and a beautiful scene happened with Tom, one of our actors, and we were asking people just to draw some of the things from the rehearsal process so that we could see what was happening in their imaginations and their psyches, just to draw some images. And Tom drew this picture, and it was a man, and it was all icy blue, and there were all these jagged edges around it. And actually that was where the scene, The Shivering Man, started from. It started from his drawing. So then we took him and we said, okay, you be that part of the drawing. And these jaggedy shapes around the edges, what is it? And he started shivering. And so we started to move and to shiver with him. And then we started to build up this physical scene. I think we made that scene in about an hour, and it hasn't changed since. It was so powerful. It was like, poof, puff, poof. There it is. It was Paul. It was his. He owns it. He loves it. That's his character. And then we started playing it with object manipulation around it with Helen, and the beautiful Gecko style of bringing objects and flying around, about this man losing his job, losing his keys, losing his house, losing his family, and left shivering in a box. But it was that's, I would say, probably one of my favorite devising moments. It was so truthful, and Tom's connection to that character is extraordinary, because it came from right inside him.
So along with the drawing and the illustration, what other devising methodologies do you rely on a frequent basis to generate work?
Yeah, lots of moving, lots and lots of moving, mirroring.
And sorry, what does that look like? How do you go about practically delivering that?
It really varies. We do a lot of work around Laban, first of all, to get the basic movement skills. We do a lot of mirroring and shadowing. We might then take a scene or an idea and think about an emotion and start to move with that different emotion. Or sometimes we would just break into a small group and have a facilitator or a creative enabler in each small group, and we'd figure things out and say, let's try this, and what would you like to do? And so finding ideas in the small groups. There's so many different ways. I'd say that probably, very similar to another rehearsal room. However, the communication is just very different about how we're doing it, and the observations around the ideas being gathered from the movement. And I will then go away and have a big pile of paper on the floor, and I draw. The script is like full of diagonals and zigzags and lines, because they're actually patterns and shapes of movement. So there are very few words, and Inesh works with us now, but previously we worked with Matt Marks, and I would have this big pile of paper with shapes and dots and squiggles on it, and I'd say, Matt, that's the script. He went, yeah, brilliant. And off he went and played shapes and dots and squiggles in his music. I mean, absolutely, he's not with us anymore. He's a wonderful musical genius, and Inesh is too, which is marvelous. But that's sort of, we're playing on these impulses of what then the musician will. For example, we'll drop a character, let's say the old lady, for example, and we'll start moving, and we'll all be moving as the old lady, and then the musician start adding some sound, and then we might drop in a little idea, and then just exploring and then pulling things out and watching, and then the actors will watch each other and feedback, and we video a lot. Always have done, even before lockdown. Videos, photos, because of the processing of information is different. My memory's terrible, basically, so it's for me too. We've just got our catalogue, so then we'll come back and we'll look at the next rehearsal, some of the photos, or we'll set that as a task at home. Look at the photos, what works, what doesn't work, what do you like? And you seem to find that some of the actors will really just get, if something feels right for them, they will just hold it and want to do it, and just know that works for me. Sometimes that can be a challenge artistically if that doesn't quite fit, so we have to have a negotiation process, as any director would in a devising process. Trying to capture as much visual material as possible.
So how far were you through the development and creation process for the drum?
We were in creative development, and we'd had 3 intensive rehearsals scheduled, and we'd also been working in actor training in between. We had done 2 intensive rehearsals, so we gathered quite a good bit of material, and I was just watching some of it before this interview, actually going, oh goodness me, that was lovely in that room. got me quite emotional, because we've all been just looking, how can we get through this year, what's happening next? So to look back at that rehearsal space and what we were doing. So we'd got a good framework, and we were very excited about the 3rd intensive rehearsal that was going to happen in May. And that was also going to involve some Hubbub Way training with our company, and with Gecko actors coming up as well. We were going to do a lovely skills share with them. So that didn't happen, but we did have an online sharing. And I mean, that is available as well, and the films are available on our website to have a look at. And in that, we thought, oh crikey, we've got a really good sense of what this piece is, the story of this boy and his journey through to adulthood, and it's almost like a quest. He's on a quest, and he finds, well, his mother we set it in austerity. And his mother's struggling, and she can't give him the drum that he really, really wants. But she does find a stick, and she gives the boy a stick. And obviously, that really, for a teenage lad, that's really not doing it. So, but he's got this stick. But we're wondering about a number of things about this stick, about it being almost a portal into this journey of his his discovery of himself. And the whole story is guided by these agents of kindness who look like 1930s spies with the overcoats on and the trilby hats. And they tell the story. They're going to carry the story on. Now, I'm very, very influenced by Knee-High Theatre Company. And, they blew my mind when I first saw Tristan and Isolde years and years ago, the living Hammersmith. And the Unloved, the chorus of the Unloves. And this idea, it's almost Greek in itself, that there's a chorus that tells the story, but this chorus are actually quite they're clowns as well. So they capture that essence of, life is hard, but life is beautiful, life is cruel, but life is kind. So we're just playing with this, with the agents who will guide the audience and the boy through this story, where he meets different characters and there's interactions, and he gives characters what they need with the phrase, "You need it more than I." And we think that's the only spoken word in the piece. You need it more than I. Everything else is non-verbal. Yes, I'm talking too much. We are going back into development. We've saved a bit of money. We're going to make a film of the Agents of Kindness. So we have a digital thing. And then we're just applying for make the piece, but we're looking at taking it outdoors. Just for many, many reasons, as you can probably understand. And we have been fortunate enough to get funding for an outdoor structure. And we're looking at it being more like an event. So given the current times, the needs of the current times, the need to reconnect for community, we wanted to get back into the heart of communities. But we want to be able to go somewhere and set up, and there'll be a caravan of creativity which will engage people in different things, whether it's cooking or bunting making, and then the bunting becomes there 2 meter distance, or it will everything that people can come along and make as part of our community. I find it quite odd when we talk about community as separate to us. We are it. We will create a community for that time. And then there'll be the play and outdoors, but these roaming agents of kindness, and then the piece will be embedded in that. But the final scene is a party, so that will be a party. So it's almost like a mini festival, mini. So literally, you come out feeling like you've been through a process, been through an alchemical process. You've come out changed because you've had this experience, you've tasted that, you've smelt that, you've seen that, you've heard that. Your senses are alive. And hopefully the story will capture people. So we want to go back into that process in the spring, when hopefully things are okay to do that. And then share that work in the summer, and then look to take it out next summer and meet different people. And, kindness is on everybody's tongue this year, which is amazing. So we feel that our revolution worked. Everybody's saying kindness. We need it.
And you're also looking at putting together some artist training as well. What does that look like?
It will involve looking at the key areas of creating a space, an accessible and safe space to work. The details of it, again, I'm still working on them, but I led a workshop also with Derby Theatre facilitators in January, and as I was observing the responses to the work, I kind of wrote down the key areas of how we manage a room and how we manage ourselves. Because I also firmly believe that, and this again came through training as a drama and movement therapist, that we are our tool. When we're in theatre, we don't have the instrument or the paintbrush, or we can have bits and bobs, but essentially when we're walking into a rehearsal space, before all the other stuff comes in, we are the tool. And so for a facilitator to reflect on, what do they bring into that room? How much of that space are you already filling before we even begin? So how do we really look after ourselves? And well-being, again, always coming back to that. Well-being, how do you look after yourself? How do you manage your own energy, your own responses, your own life that might be falling apart on the other side of this door? How can you walk through here? And in this ritual that essentially that's what we'll be training in, the process of doing that. How do you then create the space collectively for, this creative process to happen? And then we'll also look at, as I said, ritual. We'll look at non-verbal communication styles. We'll be looking at how to manage a room non-verbally. When a room is dying, when the energy's going, how do you pick it up without going, hey, everyone, with no words? How do you pick it up with no words? How do you bring a room down from chaos with no words? So a lot of that as well.
Amazing. So how do people sign up? How do they get involved?
Sign up? Not the first one. There will be a pilot. But however, if we knew that people were really keen practitioners, we'd love to hear from them. And I think anybody who wants to find out more or know, then maybe I could run it, if there was interest, I can run an open workshop. I very much function on demand. But as this pilot process happens, then there will in the future be an open training for sure, whether that's towards the end of this year or the beginning of 2022, that will happen. But there may be that we have some smaller workshops. And if people are interested, they just need to have a look at our website, and the email is on there, which is hubbubtheatre.org, or email info@hubbubtheatre.org, and we'll get back. Really?
Could I just ask, now that time has obviously moved forward from when you were originally curating this work for your show, The Drum, how has that work now responded to being in a different time? Has that changed anything for you? Has it been able to give you a little bit more room for reflection and maybe sharpen some of the ideas or modify them in any sort of way, so that this new version of that show is responsive to now? It's not necessarily a reworking of a piece that was responsive to then, pre-pandemic.
Great. So I think the themes of the drum as well, looking at reworking it and taking it outdoors and how it fits into this post-COVID world where kindness and acceptance are needed more than ever. We're also looking, the themes of the drum are also about sharing and resource sharing, and embedded in our company, and even more so now, is the need to be environmentally responsible. For me and many of our artists, it's just a no-brainer. That's it. That is what we have to do now. We have to respect our planet. So everything we do, from the resources we use to the way we travel to the message within our piece, is got that at the back of it. And I think for me, going outdoors, working in connection with nature as well, we're looking at the company being more in tune with the cycles of the year. I know, like, on a practical sense, that we're better performing and touring in April, May, June, July. Oh, it's hot and it's warm. Then we're better, reflecting in the winter. So we're beginning to follow a natural pattern, which I think is a healthy process of getting in tune with our bodies individually, in tune with our world around us, and to nature. We are literally going to hibernate for 2 weeks. Hubbub is hibernating for 2 weeks in winter, because restoration, and the arts, we are so all passionate and we're all driven, and we can just keep going. And Hubbub have this phrase, with your hands like a butterfly, keep it going with kindness. And it's like, yes, we will keep it going, but we also need to rest. And so that's, I think, it will become a more powerful message in our work as well. We live on this earth, we have one earth. We all really need to think about that. And everything we do, how we act, how we live, how we make theatre, has to be respectful of the planet.
Jen, what I've enjoyed so much today is listening to you talk about your methodologies and your practice and how you work with your company, and the ethos that is so embedded in the work that you create on every single level, and just how universal those themes are, even though on the outside your theatre company may appear to be what some people might class as specialist, is only a very, very short-sighted way of categorizing the work that you do with your company. And honestly, it's been so inspiring listening to you, and it's...
That's lovely, thank you. And it's also, I think, if you're working on that level about just being human, I'm hoping that people will relate to it, and people will come and get involved in it who wouldn't normally, especially outdoors as well. It's like it will lose some of the the bits and bobs around the edges of going to the theatre that sometimes get in the way for people, the barriers of,
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, all I can say is thank you so much for your time today. I'm really, really grateful for you sharing with me how you work, your practice, the stories of the wonderful people that you work with and get the opportunity to make fantastic theatre and art with. So thank you very much. And I hope this is the start of an ongoing conversation and documentation of Hubbub's journey. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I feel it's just lovely to just sit back and talk about it all and remember. So thank you for the opportunity. It's lovely to talk to you.